So the biggest problem with the fad diets is thinking that we can cut out certain groups like fat or sugar, too much protein, too much acid. Did you know that 80 to 90% of these fad diets fail?
The secrets of herbal healing with Elliott.
You might have heard of the term fad diet. Well, a fad diet comes along every year. There's a new fad, a new diet craze that everybody jumps on and has a go at. But did you know that 80 to 90% of these fad diets fail? And the reason for that is because they are designed around a specific eating pattern which is unsustainable. In other words, you can do it for a short time, but then you fall off the wagon and it becomes harder and harder. Not only that, but most fad diets have detrimental health effects over time. So they're not really sustainable, and that's why they're called fads. And some of those fads include the Paleo diet, the Keto diet, the vegan diet, a raw food diet, calorie counting diet, and many, many more. And what I'm going to do now is show you some of these fad diets, why they fail, and what a sustainable long-term eating plan is, and the best way to eat long-term for good health. Right, I'm Brett the Herbalist. Welcome back to another episode of Secrets of Herbal Healing. So there's a QR code in the top corner there that you can scan, and that'll take you to the page that I'm sharing if you want to dig deeper. All right, let's get into it. Yeah, I didn't mention this one, the carnivore diet. So that's a bit of a fad at the moment, and I'll talk about that one a little bit just to start with. That if you're on a carnivore diet, basically you are loading your body with acid. So that's this one here, because it's very, very high in protein. And a high protein diet over time builds the acid up in your body, and so you become more and more acidic. Too much protein, too much acid, and you end up with a lot of pain, joint breakdown, kidney disease, chronic kidney disease. Now this can take time, so that could take 2 or 3 years to occur, but you will see, and it's also a nice environment for cancer to thrive, an acidic body. Not only that, but you're low in vitamins, enzymes, fiber, and all the antioxidants and phytonutrients that help to heal the body. So basically eating dead animals, you are what you eat. Eventually you'll become a dead animal. The human body is not designed to eat purely meat because we don't produce the stomach acids required. Carnivores produce 6 times the stomach acid as human beings, and meat can sit in the gut for 6 to 10 hours, causing a lot of sluggishness in the body. So not a good thing long term. It might make you feel better short term because you're cutting out carbs, cutting out sugars. That's good for your body, and you might get some benefits in the short term, but I don't recommend a long-term carnivore diet. So let's just look at some of these other fads. Calorie counting. Well, calorie counting's it works. You will lose weight with calorie counting, but you can calorie count and have a donut each day and keep your calories down. So it's not really the way to eat good food, counting your calories, because you're not necessarily going to choose the right foods. So if you eat carrots and apples, for example, you're going to have very, very low calories, but you can eat as much as you like, and that's a good food. So, look at calorie counting is really a waste of time unless you're eating the right foods. So that's very hard to do. The paleo diet, yeah, great. I mean, having unprocessed food is basically the core of the paleo diet. But a lot of people just look at this as having a lot of meat. And it's not a really great way to eat long term, to have too much meat. The keto diet, that's going into ketosis is really good if you want to control your sugar, your blood sugar, or you're fighting cancer, because it's very good to starve cancer of sugar. So going into ketosis, it's known to be good for your brain. But again, long term, it's going to be causing an acid environment in your body, which is not good, not good environment for any of your organs over the long term. Raw food diet, yeah, that's great, but a lot of foods are actually a lot easier to digest when they're cooked. A lot of vegetables like carrots and broccoli and root vegetables and so on. So you're restricting your ability to process food by having a purely raw diet. It's great to have a lot of raw food, especially fruits, salad vegetables, But you do need to have some cooked food really to get a holistic diet. The zone diet, the blood type diet, these are other fads, portion sizing, mixing, food combining. They're all, really complex and difficult to sustain. The blood type diet says you can only eat certain foods based on your blood type. But also, I think that's rubbish because genetically we're so, mixed now from ancient times. So our genes are mixed and combined all over the world. The Mediterranean diet, that's probably one that I would say is verging on a perfect diet as far as being not quite a fad. The macrobiotic diet, that's having more grains and legumes and pulses and that kind of thing in your diet. That can be good if you're suffering with cancer. The Mediterranean diet can be good if you're, wanting to sort out your metabolism. But again, I wouldn't suggest sticking purely to one of these types of diets. I think we need to mix it up, and moderation is the key. Here's a little video about the food matrix, which talks about whole foods and how important it is to eat whole foods, how much better they are for your body's metabolism and the whole processing of food. So have a look at that video, it's really great. So going fad-proof means having foods that you can have long-term without missing anything, without restricting yourself in such a way that you feel inhibited, and also having foods that you can have access to and cook in a variety of different ways without going to the bad foods, which I call bad foods is processed foods or ultra-processed foods. So the thing to do is stick with things that are simple and easy and sustainable. So the biggest problem with the fad diets is thinking that we can cut out certain groups like fat or sugar or carbohydrates and cut out those food groups. And that's long-term not good for your body. We're designed to be omnivorous. In other words, we have a wide range of nutrient needs, and we need a wide range of foods in order to get all those nutrients that we need. So cutting out a food group is not a good idea. So I suggest going on a non-diet diet. In other words, a diet where you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. And if you do this right, it can also be cleansing and healing for your body at the same time as help you with metabolism and weight loss. So a variety of foods, but including a lot of whole foods, a lot of unprocessed foods, a mixture of cooked and raw. So it's really good to have a mixture of cooked and raw, because some of the cooked foods are easy to digest, like your sweet potatoes, your kumara, your parsnip, your broccoli and leeks and cabbages. All those things are much easier to digest when they're cooked. And then have some raw foods, so some of the salad vegetables, like your cucumber and your tomatoes and your avocado and all those sort of things, and pickles and olives and gherkins, but also to have a wide variety. So don't restrict any food group, have a lot of good fats, a lot of good complex carbohydrates, but also some healthy protein. So healthy protein can be some eggs, fish, chicken, even some dairy products, some good quality cheese, milk and yogurt. So those are the key cornerstones of what I would say is a good, wholesome, rounded diet. Not too many fried foods, not too many processed foods, not too much red meat. And you really can't go wrong with that if you combine your food in this way. So here's the golden rules. Choose unprocessed food over processed food. Eat more plant-based food, but don't go 100% plant-based. I'd say a 4-to-1 ratio. More plant-based food than animal-based foods. Eat a wide variety, especially fresh fruits and vegetables. Be generous with herbs and spices. This is a really helpful thing too, because it helps you with your appetite and your digestion. And it's also healthy. There are a lot of antioxidants in the herbs and spices. Don't worry about quantity. So this is an interesting thing, because if you're having these whole foods, you naturally, your appetite is naturally restricted. Your appetite is self-limiting, because you feel fuller faster with whole foods. Try eating 6 whole carrots, or 3 whole apples, and see how you feel. You don't have to worry about the calories with whole food. And also, you'll find that the fats, carbohydrates, protein mixtures, it becomes just a much more natural process to do. And maybe a couple of nuts and a couple of seeds, but not a lot of those either, because they're not really easily digested. So that's what I would call a sustainable diet. And cooking. You know, make sure you're cooking. If you're not cooking your food or chopping, if you're not chopping food or cooking food, then you're not getting a healthy diet. If you're just slapping a piece of meat in the pan and getting a couple of pieces of bread, and that's not preparing food. That's not real food, and it's not a really good healthy way to eat long term. So make good choices. There's some good carbohydrates. A little bit of bread. I'd recommend sourdough if you can get it. Or go to a bakery. Don't get your bread from the supermarket. Go to a bakery. It's worth the effort. And cut back on your bread so you're only having a few slices, maybe even 2 or 4 slices a week at the most. So your loaf of bread's going to last you a month. And it's a really good investment to do it that way, to get high quality bread. It'll pay off. And if you're having these other foods, you won't need so much bread. And pick what's in season. So fruits and vegetables can be really good quality and really good value if you go for what's in season. So here's your good proteins, a few legumes, a few little bits of nuts, a little bit of cheese. I recommend eggs as a good food. So you could have 6 eggs a week, a chicken breast, a couple of chicken breasts, or a couple of pieces of fish per week. But have some vegetarian nights. So this is another thing I think is really important to remember, is that you can mix up your diets. So in other words, all of those fad diets that we listed, you can cherry pick all the goodness out of all of those diets. There are good parts to them, but mix them together so you've got a much more sustainable long-term plan that is much more flexible and gives you much more variety in your food. And you don't feel like you're restricting yourself in any way. That's a fad-proof diet, and you really feel satisfied when you do it that way. And there's some good fats. Of course, you do get fats in dairy, nuts, eggs, yogurt, cheese, fish. But olive oil and coconut products, coconut cream, coconut oil, those are really good as well for really good fats. And avocados, of course, are fantastic. I recommend having an avocado every other day, at least 3 avocados a week is a really good way. Make sure you're getting those good fats. Plain yogurt, good quality cheese is okay, a little bit, not too much. So if you get a block of cheese, say you get a kilo block of cheese, that should last you for 6 to 8 weeks. You don't want to be having cheese every single day, and you don't want to have a lot of it. But it's good to have a little bit. It's another good protein and another good fat source. And of course, I'm going to drop some links under this video to all of our recipes. We've got dozens and dozens and dozens of really, really good healthy recipes that you can look at and use in your sustainable fad-proof diet. So here's some of my suggestions for food. Breakfasts, porridge, sprinkled with a few pumpkin seeds, yogurt, honey, free-range eggs with tomato, mushroom, spinach. Smashed avo on toast with an egg is a really good breakfast or lunch. Fruit and berry smoothies or green smoothies, fantastic breakfast. That's what I normally have, a smoothie. Gets you right through the day. So you can swap these around. Homemade soups, sushi and miso, fantastic. If you're out and about and you've got to get some lunch on the run. Obviously salads galore, so you can have any kind of salads. Baked kumara, stuffed kumara, cream corn, coleslaw. All of these things are really great. The dinner suggestions: pan-fried fish with pumpkin mash, steamed vegetables. Oh yeah, really good. Vegetables and garlic, onion, lemon juice, coconut milk. That's sort of like Thai food, Asian food. Curries are really good for dinners. The dal and vegetable curries. A little bit of rice. I recommend brown rice over white rice. But sometimes I'll mix the two together, so you're getting a bit of both. So it cuts back on the white rice. Steamed veggies, stir-fried veggies, veggie bakes, lots of veggies. It's a really good way to go. You can't go wrong with more vegetables. 80% vegetables is what I recommend. And then there's a few snacks you can have, a few nuts and seeds, but not too many. I wouldn't even recommend a handful in a day, not even that, and probably not every single day either. Dried fruits, dates, raisins and prunes, yogurt and juice. Vegetable sticks with hummus and guacamole. That's a really, really good snack. That really cuts back on your appetite. You won't eat too much of that. Pickles, cucumber, onions and olives, and also obviously fresh fruit. Fresh fruit of any kind is a great snack. And just remember not to overcook. So if you deep fry or you well do things and you cook them until they're, charred, you're not going to get a whole lot of nutrition out of them. So it's better to have things that are a little bit crunchy, a little bit of life in them, because live food over dead food, you're going to get much more benefit from having more live food than less dead food. So that's the way to sort of look at that as an 80-20 kind of a mix. So more raw food is better. And the reason we like to mix all the food in with such a variety is so that you get a good mixture of all of your vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, enzymes, phytonutrients, and all of those things that heal the body. So you really need to be having these things. That's why the carnivore diet is such a worry at the moment. I'm worried about people, in 10 years' time, if they do stick to a carnivore diet, there's going to be some terrible consequences, I feel. All right, so that about covers it. I hope you've sort of understood the principle of fad diets and why they're not so good for you, and what a sustainable fad-proof diet is, and how you can stay healthy long term by looking after your diet. And of course, avoiding toxins. So that's another subject, but I hope that's been helpful, and I'll drop a link in below to the food so you can have a go at a few things. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.